Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we'll start this Sanhedrin daf Pei Gimel. We are going to begin on Pei Gimel Amud Aleph by the two dots, about 10 lines from the top gufa, getting back to what we said before. Ve'elu shebamisa. These are the following situations where a person does this. You'll be chai misa b'di shemayim. Ha'oichel satevel. First of all, someone who eats untithed foods, where we didn't take off the proper trumas and maestras. So in that situation, you will be your chai. V'kayin tamei she'oichel truma tahira. Even though it's proper truma, but a kohen who is tamei is not allowed to eat it, and therefore because of that he is chayiv misa. And Rashi says this is a brisa, and it mentions a lot of them, and it could also perhaps include others, etc. Okay, but we're going to, again, understand each of these cases, how we see them in Psukim, as we go through today's daf. Again, v'kohen tamei she'ochel truma tahara v'zar she'ochel as truma. A non-kohen who eats truma is also chayiv misa v'dishmayim. V'zar she'shimesh, which we mentioned before, a non-kohen who serves, and as he does the avoda, that's a no-no. The tamei shishimesh, and this is actually the key one we said before, a kohen who is tamei that did the avoda. So we saw from here, based on yesterday's daf, which we posed at kasha, we wondered when it came to a kohen shishimesh batoma, what the din is. Is it considered to be that individual is chayiv misa b'di shemayim or not? And we say clearly that he is. V'tful yoim. So you need to wait until sunset. Instead, you're at Tful Yoim, you maybe went to the mikveh, but you didn't achieve Erev Shemesh, Shishimesh, and you served then. Or Mechusar Begadim. Let's say you're not wearing the proper Bigdei Kahuna, Mechusar Kaparim, Kapaira. Let's say you have a person like a Zav or Matzaira, that they not only have to wait that night, but also the next morning, they actually have to bring a carbon on the 8th day. And until they do that, it's considered to be mechusar kapara. So at that state, even though you went to the mikvah, you achieved Erev Shemesh, doesn't make any difference, because since you're still mechusar kapara, you're not allowed to serve. Also, the kohanim have to wash their hands and feet before they do the avoda. Yayin, someone who's intoxicated, is misa upori roish. Someone who is a porei roish, who has their head overgrown, doesn't mean that they don't have a kippah, which is probably would be mechusar mechusar begadim, but porei roish is sheshimshu porei roish. She'avar lehen yosem shoshim yoim shel golcho roisho. That a kohen hedjed has to have a haircut every 30 days, so he has overgrown hair. And in many ways, we compare a Purei Rosh to Shusu Yayin. In some ways, we don't. Aval Arel v'oynein v'yoshiv enu b'misa. Someone who's an Arel says not just he didn't have a bris milah, but his brothers died machmas milah, and therefore it's logical that he should not have a bris milah, but he's still considered to be an Arel. An oinein, who serves, who is basically sitting shiva, but before the kvura, v'yoshev, someone who does the avoda sitting down. So all of these is considered to be a einu b'misa el b'azhara. It's considered to be a lav, which they would get malchus for. Balmum. Now, let's say you have a kohen who is a balmum that serves. So Rabbi Yomi b'misa, Chamam b'azhara. So machlok is what the punishment is. Fine. He's in b'meila. Let's say using items which belong to the base of mikdash, and you get hana from it. And if it's b'shoigeg, so then there's ashim ilus. But maybe we don't bring an ashim ilus, but that doesn't mean you're off the hook. Rather, Rabbi Yomi b'misa, Chamam b'azhara. Either you get malchus or it's misa b'di shemayim. So it's not like, mi'ila, you don't have to bring a carbon. And guess what? It's a lot worse. So now we go through all of these. Someone who eats tevel, how do we know it's b'misa? Diamar Shmuel Misham Rebbe Lez Medayin Lo Yichel Asa Tevel Shu b'misa Dechsev Lo Yichalu Es Kach B'nei Yisrael Yes Eshirim Lo Hashem Ba'asidim Lisroy Mekos Madaber. So it says a person should not profane that which is going to be taken, that of truma. That's what the pasuk is speaking about. So there, v'yolef chil mitruma, malham b'misav kan b'misa. So we learn out from truma. Says Rashi, she'achel b'tuma. If you eat truma b'tuma, the pasuk says b'ferish umeisubo ki echaluhu. So it clearly says that there's a misa b'di shemayim by someone who eats truma while tameh. So too a person who eats tevel. So how do we compare eating tevel to eating truma batuma? So he says like this: maybe v'nel chil chilmo nicer. Maybe we should tackle one out from nicer, because the pasuk also says kias Hashem kias kodesh Hashem chilel malha bekaris avkan bekaris. So maybe the punishment isn't misa b'dishmayim, but rather it's takikaitis. And we saw in yesterday's daf the shitas. There's a major differences among the shitas. Bar Tanur says karis, you still need to do tshuva. Misa b'dishmayim, you receive kapara. Rashi says karis means dying without children. Or Yerushalmi says karis is at 50 years. Misa b'dishmayim is at 60. Rambam says karis is even in Olam Haba. Karis is certainly worse than misa b'dishmayim. That's basically the truth. The question is, what exactly does it consist of? So the question is, maybe someone who eats tevel should actually be chayv karis, because we can learn from Noisa. No mastabra mitruma havelu melef. Better that we should learn out from someone who eats truma in the state of tuma. Why? Shechein truma. Both of them are linked to truma. Tevel, you ate it before you separated truma. Chutz la'aretz. Says Rashi, what does that mean, chutz la'aretz? So, let's see. V'noisa ein noyig lo b'tevel, lo b'truma, lo b'kashim. Let me make sure you see it. So, the chutz la'aretz is something which could pertain to truma and tevel, but not when it comes to nicer. Nicer is a Beis HaMikdash item. Chutra, both become mutter, not nicer, because the tevel could become mutter, and the truma, it's already fine, but the person could become tahar. However, when it comes to nicer, nicer is nicer. You have to do sreifa, based to sreifu. Barabim, and barabim is actually probably the most important one, as it has to do with the lashon of the pasuk, as we'll see. Peris, when it comes to truma, we're talking about fruits, tevel's fruits, and nicer's animals. Pigul, the concept of pigul, of having an improper machshava, which is obviously only a Beis HaMikdash thing, that's only noyig by nicer. It's not noyig by tevel or truma. It's only noyig by kodshim. The nicer, and of course, the notion of nicer is only noyig by karbanos, and the having left over or leaving truma or tevel too long, that doesn't mean anything. So obviously, it makes more sense, therefore, to compare someone who eats tevel to someone who eats truma while tameh, therefore the misa for someone who eats tevel is misa b'shmayim. So adrabah, v'nois havlo meilv shechein pasol oichel. When it comes to noiser, it pasels oichel, says Rashi. Noiser v'tevel, when it comes to both of them, shneim pasol hamaychel, the food itself. Avol truma paisel haguf, right? So noiser is the food, and the tevel is the food, is the problem. When it comes to truma, it's the person who is tameh is the problem. So it's one's an object, one's the cheftza, one's the gabra. So maybe it makes more sense fakir to learn from nicer, and that's one important distinction. In addition to that, ein lo heter b'mikveh There's no heter in a mikvah. So what does that mean? So Rashi doesn't help me with this, but the idea is that when it comes to truma, the truma is fine. The person is tameh, so that person has a way to fix himself by going to the mikvah. But if you dip tevel or noiser into a mikvah all day, it doesn't do anything. So they're more comparable. So that's true, but hanach nafishin. We go by which one has more similarities. That's one reason. Ravina Omer chil deram mechil derabim adif. Better that we shul it out chilul in which there are more comparable language because they're both derabim, as opposed to when it comes to nicer, it only says, as Rashi quoted, Lashon Yachid, Kodesh Hashem Chilel. However, when it comes to the others, it's Lashon Rabim, V'lo Yichalalu. That's Lashon Rabim, right? That's Lashon Rabim. Ki Yichalaluhu. However, by Noiser is Lashon Yachid, Kodesh Hashem Chilel. So it's, even though maybe there could be more reasons, less reasons, that may not be a reason, but when it comes to Gzer Shava, we want to use the more comparable language, and therefore that's the second answer. So again, Lamaskana, a kohen who, a person who eats tevel is chayim misa b'dishamayim. Question 13. Be'elu ofanim etzinu kohen tahar. It's a great question. Here we can find a kohen who's tahar. The enu balmum shishimish v'hu b'misa. How does, by serving, you can, and you're not tameh, how is it possible, and it's not a balmum, you're b'misa. One is you're mechus begadim, you're not wearing the right garments, you didn't wash your hands or feet, you're drunk, or purei roish, you haven't had your hair cut. It's a great question. Okay, it just reminds you of the cases. How do we know a kohen tameh who eats truma tahara? So how do we know this? That's what we've been saying up until now. But how do we know taka that this person's chayv b'dishamayim? So Manolan, so Diamar Shmuel Menayin the kohen tameh shachot truma tahara shehu b'misa b'dishamayim. How do we know if a kohen is tameh and he's eating good truma that he's chayv? D'chsev v'shamas mishmarti v'lo yisol chet v'goymer. Fine. So that's what the pasuk says, and then tahara in only if the truma is tahar. However, tameya lo, but not if we're dealing with truma tameya. The whole isser is dafka if a tummy person eats truma tahira, not truma tameya. Diamar Shmuel Amar Belezer Menayin l'kohen tamei shachal truma tameya shein b'misa. That if an impure kohen eats impure truma, that he's not going to be chayim misa b'shmayim. It's only when the truma is tahar. Shenermu mesu boy ki yechalaluhu. That he will die and get misa b'shmayim because he desecrated the truma. Because it must be because the truma was tahar and he desecrated it by making it tameh. Prat says the Gemara in Pei Gimel Mebeis Lazu shemechalwelos vayimedes. The truma was already mechalel because it was already tameh. V'zar she'aychel as a truma. A non-kohen who eats truma also is misa b'shmayim. Amrav zar she'aychel as a truma loike. Taki only gets malchus. So Amrele Rav Kahana v'Rav Asi Rav Lema Mar b'misa. D'chsev v'choyel zo yochel kodesh. The pasuk apparently should say that you should chai misa. So ani Hashem mikadsham hifsek inyan. So he says that these words is actually hifsek inyan, and therefore there is no misa b'dishmayim, but rather it's a lav, a zar who eats truma. So meisvei ve'elohein shema misa zar shaychas the truma. It says beferish in the brisa that you're chai misa b'dishmayim. The mastisa the Rav Karomis Rav Tanu Polig. You're right. He's chayuk with this brisa. Okay. Fine. Okay. Fine. So the zar shimish dechsev azar karev yumos. So that's pretty poshut. Azar does the avodah that says azar karev yumos. So in the Margos Yam, the Aram asks that maybe the pasuk should be misa b'diyadam. How do we know yumos means misa b'dishamayim? Maybe taka zar who serves in the base of mitzvah should be chayim misa b'diyadam. So he says that the pasuk, therefore, we don't find that someone Mechalil the Mikdash gets anything but Misa B'di Shemayim. So a person who takes the Kalim, so there's a din Knayim Poigin boy, but the truth is there's no Misa B'di Adam. So we never find that. So it must be also over here, it's you must cannot be B'di Shemayim, and B'di Adam must be B'di Shemayim. But Tamei Shishimish, a Tamei person, Kayin who serves, Kidabah Minei Rav Chia Barabin Marav Yosem, and I let Tamei Shishimish who b'misa Dechsiv Daber Ara and Velbanav, speak to them. The Nazru and separate, they should separate themselves Mikachim and Israel. V'lo Yichalu Hashem Kachi. They should not make the Mikdash in their service Tamei, which means that they are Tamei while they're serving. The Yov Chilchilu Matruma. Malhon Misa Kan B'Misa. As we said before, that we learn out just like a person who each Tevel is Misa B'Dishmayim, when not from Truma, so too over here. So V'nev Chil M'Naiser, Malhon Karas Avkan Karas, same question. So Mastabra Truma Havil Melv, Shachain Guf, Tamei Mikva Barabim. Okay, let's see if Rashi helps us out with this. So he says, when it comes to Guf, Tamei, so what is Guf? Because we're talking about the person who is Tamei, who serves, right? This is talking about the Kohen who is Tamei, who serves, or a Kohen who is Tamei, who eats Truma. So both of them is, the Guf is Tamei. Mikveh, they can go to a mikvah, as opposed to nicer. You can't put your money, your food into a mikvah, it's no longer nicer. And barabim, as we saw before, that the language of Chilel, when it comes to nicer, is lashon yachid, and these are lashon rabim. So adu rabim nicer avol mev shechein kaidish, that they both have to do with the base of mikdash, pnim, inside, pigov and nicer. So maybe we shouldn't learn out from Truma, but rather we should learn just like a Kayin who serves. The din is just like nicer, because they're both Beis HaMikdash items. Our answer is Chil D'Rabim Adif. Over here, obviously, we couldn't answer the same question because they're basically the same amounts, but that's what that is. When we said before that Rav was a Tanu, who's Polig, there's a question if Rav, who is also called Rav Abba, one of the Tanoim, or that he is as great as one of the Tanoim. That's one of the questions. Is he Taka a Tana, like in that generation, or does he have like the same status of greatness? Okay, question 14. Daber Aranvil Benet Bal Banavi knows who Mikachim and Yisrael Yichalu Hashem Kachi Lami Mazhir Kosim Zeh Shlo Yishamish B'Kodesh. So one is referring to a Kohen Tamei, and also the other is a Zar. And actually, it says Rashi. So let's see this. Okay. Fine. So those are the two. Let's hold off. Let's finish the daf. Tvul Yoim Shishimish. So you have a Tvul Yoim. So again, you went to the mikvah, but you needed to wait until the night to be able to, let's say, eat truma. But here is you served as a Tvul Yoim. And all the Sanya, Rav Simoy Yoimer Rebbe's Tvul Yoim Sheim Avad, if he did the avoda, Chilel, that he passels the avoda, B'nayin Talmud Lemer Kedoshim Elokechem V'yichalu, and don't profane it. Im Enu Einin L'Tamei Sheshimish Denafkalan V'Yanozru. We already went out from the pasuk V'Yanozru to teach us a kohen who is tamei that serves these chayim misa b'di shemayim. So Einin L'Tvul Yoim Sheshimish, we're going out from him. So V'nei Chil Matruma Malchon B'Misa Avkan B'Misa. Fine. So it's just another extension, but that's how we know. Machus Rigodim, if you don't, not wearing the clothes, Menol, and Amar Rabbi Avodi, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, interesting answer over here. Amar Rabbi Avodi, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Matubal Mishmei Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Shimon. The pasuk says, V'chagarto Isam Abnei, you should gird them with girdles. Bizman Shibigdam Alehem, Kunasam Alehem. And Bigdam Alehem, and Kunasam Alehem, V'havilu Huzar, V'yamar Zar Shishimish B'misa. So it's interesting. It's the clothes that make the man, referring to Kohen. You're considered a Kohen if you are wearing the big day kahuna. But if you're mechusar kippurim, you're just like a non-Kohen. You're a zar. It doesn't mean zar does not really mean a non-Kohen. It just means you're estranged from the avoda. So therefore, you have the same status as a zar, and therefore, because of that, you are also chai misa, just like a zar who serves. Mechusar kapara. So mechusar kapara again. For example, Nazir, Masaira, you're waiting until the 8th day, and maybe it's already taka the 8th day, but you didn't bring a carbon yet, so you're mechusar kippurim. So Manon, so Marav Huna, the Amar Kran, he does service then. Plus, there's V'chipro leha kayin. This is referring to a yoledes, the tahira. So the kayin will mechaper, and she'll become pure from her yimei tuma, whether it's a boy or a girl. So tahira mechlashi tameya. The fact that it says tahira mashma, there's tuma. The Ramar tami shishimish b'misa. Okay. V'shol rachas et amar glai menon. You have to wash first so you will not be killed. Mashma, if you don't, then you're chayiv misa b'nishmayim. V'shisu yain, we had this pasuk many times. Person cannot consume alcohol and then enter the base of mikdash, like perhaps Nadav and Avihu did. Anyway, the point is that you would be chayiv misa b'nishmayim. Puri roish. Let's just see this last one. His head should not be shaven, or peril yishalchu, and overgrown it should not be. And it says right next to it, wine you should not drink. So this is perua roish yayin, masha yayin b'misa perua roish b'misa. So that's how we derive all of this. Let's see. Let's look at this Taisus over here. Ein big day in Alehin Hiksha Rabbi Yankiv says V'ham Misa Kosav Hedyan Gabi Mechusar Begadim Be Parshas V'ata Tetzava. It says explicitly, right? So what do you mean? You have this whole drasha that he's like a zar. V'teretzehu Misa a Mechnasayim. So the truth is that's only referring to the pants, and therefore and for Taisus that you need this for the Shar Begadim. So if you're not wearing pants, so then Taka, you went out from the psukim. However, all the other, if you're mechusar, the other begadim, it's only because you compared them to a zar. Fine. And perhaps the psukim were dafka by a kohen hedjit. Maybe you wouldn't have known mechusar kippurim is also by a kohen gadol. That is the Rivah al HaTorah says that pshat. Okay, we're gonna stop there. Let's look at maybe another question. Who knows? TA2. Koyin Tameh Shachal Truma Ha'im Chayiv Misa. Koyin Tameh. A Koyin Tameh who eats Truma, is he Chayiv Misa? So the answer, your gut reaction would be yes, but it depends. It's only, as we saw over here, TA2, on the bottom of this daf, it says, only if it's truma tahara, right? However, tahara in tameya loy. If a kohen who's tameh ate truma tameya, then he would not be chayev misa. Okay, TB3. Ksib parsha to oichel truma betuma. A person who eats truma bituma while you're tummy umesubo kichaluhu. Mama might hakasa memisa ba'omer bo lurabanan. So the fact that it says ha'oichel truma betuma umesubo kichaluhu. So what do we learn out? Umesubo kichaluhu, which is a pretty hard question. But this is similar to what we just saw. This is TB3. So certainly it's only if it's Truma Tameya, Truma Tahira, but not Truma Tameya. Let's see. They want two answers. Rak Truma, it's hard to read this. Truma, Kisha Truma Tahar, Hu Chai Misa. Aval Im Hatruma Truma Tameya, Ozlu Chai Misa. Okay. That's clear. That's on Pei Gimel Amud Aleph. What's the second answer? Let's see. V'gam hazar lo mechai misa kamoi koyin. Shneim kvar mischaleles V'yomedes v'gam bal mum. I'm not sure if that's exactly the right answer. It's a great question, though. Ad kan.